and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Quinn-Fraser, and this week I am interviewing the lovely Mike Garner, who is a copywriter and a writer, and he's been a client of mine for a very long time now. We've known each other for a long time. And it's taken, I don't know why it's taken this long to get him on the podcast. So yeah, we are talking about the fact that Mike is writing a book, which is obviously really exciting. I'm very excited about it. I'm loving helping him do that, and I hope that you enjoy our interview. So without further ado, here is me and Mike. Enjoy. I'm here with Mike Garner today. Hi Mike, how you doing?
Hi there.
I can't believe that I haven't brought you on the podcast before now. It's been a ridiculous amount of time. But here you are.
Here I am, yes.
Yeah. Mike and I have known each other for about 230 years. And Mike is a fellow writer, and he has been a client of mine for about 220 years. So we are going to talk today about the fact that Mike is writing a book. But before that, I'm going to start with the first question I always ask people, which is, what are you reading at the moment, Mike?
Well, I'm notoriously unfaithful to books. I can't stick to one at a time, but I'm trying to take, over the last kind of year or so, I'm trying to take your example and have a fiction and a non-fiction book. So the fiction book is a book by Meg Wolitzer, who actually wrote, I don't know if you remember the film with Glenn Close, I think it was, who got Oscar nominated. It was The Wife. She wrote that.
Okay.
But this is a story. It's one of these kind of long fresco things about a group of students in the 70s, what they did in the 70s and how they grew up and how they became middle-aged. Now, I'm about a third of the way through, so I'll tell you how it finishes later. Okay. And actually, the fiction book, non-fiction book, is this one. I'm holding up Vicky's book, How to Write a Book, because I said to you last week, I think, I read the beta when it came out, which was a while ago, let's say, and I thought I'd read the book, but in fact, I haven't. So I'm going back through it with a relatively fine-tooth comb. So it's taken me longer than it would, but that's the non-fiction book as well.
Awesome, cool, thank you, and yay for reading mine. Yeah, because the one you're reading is quite different from the beta book that you got. So, right, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, like I said, my name's Mike. I'm writing a book now. I haven't always been writing a book. I lived in France for 20 years. I came back here 18 years ago. I've been a translator, I've been a travel agent, I've been a translator, I've been a copywriter, and now I'm a book writer. Still am a copywriter really as well.
That was so cool. Okay.
In one sentence.
So what took you to France?
Oh, crikey. That was an opportunity. I had a summer job in the summer of 1980. I was a student between second and third year university. And I went to work for the British Rail office, a Sea-Link office in Paris when they still had one there. And I thought I did speak French. I had a decent level of French. But that's when I really kind of learned it, because they told me to pick up the phone. And that is a completely different world. I swam for a couple of weeks. I got shouted at, but I suppose it didn't matter because I didn't understand what people were saying. I had because it was of it. It's the normal way people speak rather than the way you learn at school or even at university.
Yeah.
With all the kind of the way that people kind of run words together and everything, and I learned an awful lot about that, with a layer of specialised vocabulary on top of it. But after about 2 or 3, about 2 weeks, the fog started to clear, and I could understand, and I could converse with people on their own terms, which was great, because then I started to understand the radio and the TV and the cinema and everything, and I thought, well, I belong here now. You know, it's I suppose you've really arrived when you understand the comedians.
Yeah.
But so that was between second and third year. I came back here, did my third year, and then went back because I met the girl that became my first wife. So I suppose really for love, I went, if you want a kind of a one sentence answer to that one.
That's so terribly romantic. And I know that you're, I know this isn't really anything to do with writing, but it is stories and it's your story.
Oh,
And
completely, yes.
I think your second marriage is quite romantic as well, wasn't it?
Oh, if you're going to go down that particular route, yes. My second marriage, it's Terry Wogan used to say my current wife. I met my wife in 1973. We were born a mile and a half apart. We went to school together, although I didn't know her because we were in different. I'm a year and a half older than she is, so we were in different classes at school, and we met actually on a school trip to Paris. There's a theme going on here.
Yeah.
and I was not 15. She was not 13 at the time. And it's very cute, yes. And we did the teenage thing, we went out together. And then life took over. Let's say I went off to university and she went off with my best friend. And then 25 years later, Friends Reunited came along. And we are one of the, and I was living in Brittany at the time. So we are one of those. She said to me right at the beginning when we first started talking, I think we have unfinished business. And we started talking in November 2002. We saw each other in April 2003. We were living together by July, and the next year in August we got married. And we've been married ever since.
That's so lovely. I love that you knew each other when you were like really small at school, and then you just came back full circle. Thank you for telling that story. I know I sprung it on you a little bit, but I also know it's a really...
No, I was half prepared.
Okay, so back to the present.
Back to the room.
Yeah, back to the room. What made you want to write a book?
I've always wanted to write a book. I've been a writer in my head probably since my late teens, when I went to the university, and I thought this writing thing I kind of quite like, even though I was writing university essays that wasn't particularly, not particularly inspiring. But then the other kind of little demon that I have in my head raises its head, is this kind of, you want to do it, but you can't really do it, what's your place? It's not really your place to be writing stuff. And I try to. I've got memories of me sitting at a desk or at a table in a flat in Paris in the 80s, trying to write these short stories and getting nowhere. Basically, I wrote about a page and a half. I did write one actually, which was, I finished one once, and over the years, I mean, we talked about this even in the last 3 or 4 years. I've started projects, but really, what I think it was just a lack of self-belief, that A, I could do it, and B, I had something worth saying. The previous, apart from the one I'm doing now, the previous books I've kind of tried to write are basically being copywriting manuals in different forms. And who wants another copywriting manual? And especially who wants them from me? And that's not me being self-deprecating about it. It's just a fact. And it's not the book I want to write as well. So I've tried for years and years and years to write something and just haven't been successful, really. When I first started translating, it was almost like I was a writer by proxy. Yeah. It was because I was translating other people's things and it wasn't very good, but it was me exercising those writing muscles. And I suppose the writer that I am now started back 25 years ago now. When I was in my, well, I'm going to reveal my age now, but I mean, I was in my late 30s at the time, and I was just kind of easing my way into it. I have taken a while to ease myself into it.
Okay, so what gave you the push to start writing this book?
The push, without getting too philosophical about it, was a whole series of life events last year. Was it last year? I lose count now. It was last year, yes. Apart from everything else that was going on last year. Yeah. Cutting a very long story short, my mother died and my wife had breast cancer. my wife is fine now. But it's the kind of thing that makes you challenge your life choices. And you're right, I think what happens now? I found myself, because my father died a number of years ago, I found myself at the top of the genealogical pile now. There was just me, my brother, and our two kids in the bloodline, as it were. So what happens next? Now it's no longer a rehearsal, and I know that's a cliche, but it really is true. That what I want to do with the time that I've got left. I'm 63 this year. I'm not going to be hanging around for 40 years anymore, unless I'm very lucky. So what do I do now? Now's the time to really kind of make the right choices and have the ability to take the choice. I remember I was doing the probate at the time and thinking, right, once this is finished, this is what's going to happen. We had conversations, I seem to remember. I did some work on my voice as well, which I decided to go to be kind of vulnerable about it, because I thought, what have I got to lose? I'm going to be open with you about this. It's something I didn't know before.
You did that with Margot, didn't you?
I was right. Okay, with Margot Aaron of this parish,
Margot Aaron, who is a friend of the podcast and has
friend of the podcast. Yeah. Yes, she certainly is. Well, Margot's got these wonderfully big, piercing eyes, and she looks at you, and it's almost like they're lasers that go straight through you, basically. And because what I hadn't reckoned on was digging out not just the vulnerability, but the shame of everything that I carried around with me, of not kind of achieving over the years and everything. And cut a very long story very short, she made me realize, yes, you have a story worth telling. And she got me writing 5,000 words a week.
Nice.
Just most of it rubbish, but it didn't matter, because I think the most important thing that she said to me was, just because you write something doesn't mean to say you have to publish it. And that was a liberation. Yeah. I've written loads of stuff in the time since then that I'll never get published because it's just personal to me. But it's the kind of stuff that you keep rattling around in your head that's almost kind of quite toxic sometimes. And the fact that you just put it on a piece of paper, on a screen, however you get it out, even probably, I haven't tried it like this, but even if you did it on a voicemail or a voice message or something like that, the fact that it's no longer in your head is a liberation.
Yes, absolutely.
So that kind of started the process.
Okay. And do you want to tell us a bit about this book that you're writing?
Well, this book I'm writing it's about, it's really just about that. It's about people that think that they have nothing to say, their stories don't matter, because they see these kind of big hitters in the world. And it's ironic that the world, the technology today has made it even easier. It's never been easier to tell your story. And to get it out into a relatively big audience. The problem is that, as usual, the people with the biggest gobs make the most noise.
Yeah.
And so it's for many people, me included, that's even more intimidating.
Yeah.
But my big realization is that every story matters. Even and especially the small ones, because so in terms of kind of the business owner audience, that is 99% of the people. An awful lot. I mean, there's not that many born entrepreneurs in the space in which I evolve. Most people are here by accident. They're there by life choice, by lots of other different things. But then they're not looking to change the world. They're looking to make a living in an honest way and if they can, make their world a slightly better place.
Yeah.
They're not looking for riches and fame and fortune. They're looking to earn a decent crust.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what your book is about. And I'm very much looking forward to it.
Basically, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Cool. So tell us what you have enjoyed most about writing this book of yours.
Just starting.
Okay.
Just getting out all those stories of mine, some of which will make the books, some of which won't.
Yeah.
And then and I know I have made a big fuss about this, but it's kind of finding a structure for it and finding out the way that works best. Because I like organising. I mean, I've got a history degree. I like organising information.
Yeah.
And it's a work in progress at the moment. There have been moments that I've had a meltdown a couple of weeks ago. I'm thinking one of those, oh, who am I to be writing this kind of thing? Because imposter syndrome comes along from time to time and rears its ugly head. But that's part of the process.
Yeah, that happens to everyone.
I do think it happens to everybody. And I do think it's a good thing, actually, to have imposter syndrome, as long as it doesn't hang around too long.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't stop you from doing the work.
Yeah, there was, because I've spoken to a lot of other business owners in this process, and one particular copywriter, actually, Amy, I spoke to, said, yeah, I get nervous all the time. I get doubt all the time. But once I've made a decision, and she's lucky enough to be able to do that, then that's it. And she's got one guiding principle when she does, am I having fun? Which I think is I'm going to try and kind of do that in the future. Am I having fun?
Yeah. That was one of the biggest things actually that came out of 2020 last year for me was, am I having fun? And the answer with a lot of stuff was no. And that was the big push for me to change the way I did things. So I love that. It's not like, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's a bit frivolous. It's like, no, it's not. You spend most of your life, or a third of your life at work. Fun, if it can possibly be.
and we're running our own businesses. If we don't have fun, we might as well just go and get a job.
Yeah.
What's the point?
You can be a misery bear with a regular pay.
Yeah, at least with a regular salary and all that kind of things you don't really need. But we have a great opportunity to be architects of our own destiny. And I think that's what's wonderful about the people I've spoken to 20 odd business owners about this ongoing. And they're already heroes because they don't do that 9 to 5. They've had the courage, the balls to say, no, I want to do it on my terms, whatever those terms are.
Yeah. And
life is more than that.
Have you found that that's been the common story that you've seen when you've been interviewing all these business owners?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they all have. There are other kind of factors that come out. I mean, some are trapped by self-doubt, some aren't. Some, like I said earlier, the born entrepreneurs, the accidental ones. One or two wanted to get away from a toxic work situation in which they were in. But yeah, generally, what brings them all together is that they are taking control of their lives to the extent that anyone can. Yeah. Anyway.
Cool. Okay, so what have you found most challenging about writing your book so far?
Again, the same thing, sitting down and writing. Yeah. It's those old demons that come out again. And the only way that I can kind of get over that is just to start writing, but not trying to write the perfect sentence. There's one particular incident, if I just kind of indulge you on this one, there's one particular incident I do talk about in the book, where I was 17. I was with my French language assistant and she was kind of sitting there. This doesn't work well on radio, but she was trying to pull words out of me with a kind of physical motion of it. because I was trying to create the perfect sentence in French. I was 17 in A-level French. There was no way I was ever going to do it. Certainly not against someone who spoke mother tongue French. But because, and even now, up until kind of quite recently, I've been trying to create the perfect sentence, and that doesn't work. The only way, the way I kind of get going is just to write literally the first thing that comes into my head, whatever gibberish it is. Because if you start writing just nonsense sentence, eventually some kind of sense will come out of it.
Yeah.
And it might take a page and a half.
Yeah.
I've also found that it's more, the creative process is better if I start that writing by hand.
Oh, that's interesting. I know a lot of people who say that, yeah, because I do all my planning by hand, but I don't really do long form writing because I'm lazy.
I do my 750 words, and they start off on my iPad.
Okay, cool.
Because the iPad has kind of handwriting recognition, and it works kind of okay. And because I'm not the most competent typer, let's say, it's sometimes quicker to write it out by hand.
That's so interesting that you're a writer who is not really a typist. And so what do you do? Because I know you're working on your typing and I know it's coming on, but what do you do instead? How do you get your work done?
Mainly by doing it slowly, with lots of mistakes, or by hand.
Okay. And do you find that changes? I mean, I suppose you haven't really got anything to compare it to because if you can't type super fast, you don't know what it's like. But do you find that gives you more time to think about what you're writing?
I write at the same time that my brain goes, the same speed that my brain goes.
Okay.
Whereas typing, my brain is always ahead.
That's interesting.
And I mean, like I say, it is getting better. Depends on the machine that I use. Mm-hmm. I find the iPad works better for typing than an actual keyboard.
Oh, really? So you use the keypad on the screen?
No. I've got a keyboard.
Oh, I see.
Attaches to the iPad.
Okay.
I've got a Magic Keyboard on the iPad, but it's a much smaller keyboard, if you like.
Right.
I don't know. It's difficult to say. It may be just because it's a smaller screen, smaller keyboard, so everything is kind of quite concentrated.
Yeah.
It can depend on the day as well. It's very strange, but like I say, I'm my goal is to have a decent typing speed, mm-hmm. And do everything that way.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That was a slight tangent into the world of actual how we write, but it's always I always find it, talking to people about how they do things. So I know you dictate stuff as well sometimes, don't you?
I haven't for a long time.
Okay.
I used to do it all the time when I was translating, but sometimes I do. It's not all that accurate, really.
Fair enough.
So I suppose I could get back to doing that, but dictation likes long, perfectly formed sentences.
Right.
And I do too many ums and ahs.
Fair enough. Okay, so back to the book then. When are you planning on having? Your first draft done, and when are you planning on?
That's a kind of a leading question. It was originally at the end of this month, but it's kind of overrunning a little bit.
As books do.
As books do. I would like it sometime towards the end of September.
Okay.
Although in my defence, I'm going on holiday for a couple of weeks. So
that would be the perfect time for you to finish your first draft and then go on holiday and forget about it for a couple of weeks.
Well, if I could, yes, and I have quite a lot of it written. I'll have certainly 3/4 of the first draft written by the time I go away in 2 weeks' time.
Cool. I shall look forward to holding you to that. Okay, cool. This has been great, Mike. We're coming to the end of our time, unfortunately. But but before we finish, I would like to ask you to leave our listeners with your top writing tip. So what if you could just tell people or one thing that would help them get words out, what would it be?
Just write. And what I mean by that is what I said earlier, right? The first thing that comes into your head. I'm very much a fan of Stephen Pressfield and his work on resistance.
Yeah.
And I forgot the name of the book now.
The War of Art.
War of Art, that's the one. Where he talks about just professionals just turn up. Stephen King was said, amateurs and professionals. It doesn't matter what you write.
Mm-hmm.
Get any kind of preconceptions about writing the perfect sentence. I always say to my clients, and it's exactly the same thing as I can say exactly the same thing to myself. I can't edit what's in your head.
Yeah.
You can't edit something that's in your head.
Yeah, you can't improve something that's not there.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to get it out and write it, and get over the kind of the any kind of hang-ups you have about it not being perfect. Nobody else is going to see. Who cares? Then you can improve it.
Lovely, thank you very much. And just the very final thing, because this we always put this out on YouTube as well. So Mike, can you just roll your chair back slightly so that we can see your t-shirt, please?
Oh, dear.
Because it was just perfect. What's on Mike's t-shirt is "You're on mute," and I love it. It just made me laugh this morning when I saw that. So
I didn't do it deliberately. It was the first one out of the drawer this morning, and it was dark. So.
It's a good one. I'm always obsessed with what's on people's t-shirts. So maybe that should be a new thing when I have guests on the podcast. It should be you have to wear a t-shirt with something interesting on it.
It could be a good idea.
Could be a good idea. Anyway, Mike, this has been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so
very much. Lovely to be.
Yeah, I'm going to get you back when the book's out as well, obviously.
Well, exactly.
I could be like, let's schedule that in now for like January, and then you'll have it done by then, but I'm not going to put that much pressure on you.
No, not that much pressure.
So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Mike. Where can people find out more about you?
The website is thesmartmessageframework.com. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Mike Garner. I'm open to conversations.
Fabulous. I will pop Mike's links in the show notes underneath this episode. And yeah, if you want any storytelling for business doing, or you want to work with Mike to find out more about how you can do that better, then do get in touch with him, because he is a lovely, lovely man, and he is one of my favorite humans. He's been in my world for a long time.
You flatter me.
True. So yeah, that is all for today, Mike. Thank you again. I will see you very soon. And as for everybody else, be good. Well, that was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Mike, again, for joining us on 1000 Authors Show. It's been brilliant. You can find out more about Mike at the smartmessageframework.com, and you can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Mike Garner, and the links are in the show notes if you want to go find out more about him. And yeah, so I'm really excited about the fact that he's finally writing a book. If you would like to write your book, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a line, tell me what you're thinking of writing. If you're wondering where to start, the best place to start is with my book, which you can get from moxiebooks.co.uk/buy the book. And yeah, I will be back same time next week, hopefully with Joe again, my lovely husband. And in the meantime, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing this half hour with me on a Saturday morning, and thank you for continuing to support the podcast. Speaking of which, if you enjoyed this podcast, please go and review us and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. We love to hear from you, and share it with your friends. Yeah, thank you. Take care, be good, and I will see you next week.